Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're going to get into the weeds of carbon credits. We're going to look at how they're supposed to work, the big challenges they're facing, and then we'll focus on one platform, GreenLink, that's trying to build a whole new model from the ground up. And, it just might reshape the future of how we finance climate action. I mean, think about that question for a second. It sounds simple, right? But it's actually at the very core of this massive global push to build a completely new kind of financial system, one that's designed to fight climate change by turning sustainable actions into something with real, tangible value. So how does that actually work? Well, look, if we're serious about tackling climate change, we have to flip the economic script. Because let's be honest, right now, polluting is often way cheaper than being sustainable. So the very first step is to put a price tag on pollution itself. That one move creates this powerful reason for everyone, from huge factories to you and me, to start cutting back on emissions. And the main tool for doing that is the carbon credit. The easiest way to think about it is like a permit for pollution. If you cut your emissions by 1 ton, you can generate a credit to sell. If you pollute more than you're supposed to, you have to buy one. It's a pretty straightforward idea, but it creates a market, a really powerful, flexible tool that can drive emissions down across the whole economy. Now, this is where it gets really interesting. These carbon markets basically exist in 2 parallel universes. On one side, you have the compliance markets. These are the mandatory government-run programs for the biggest industrial polluters. Think of India's CCTS. But on the other side, you've got the voluntary markets. And these are open to literally everyone, companies, organizations, individuals who just want to offset their carbon footprint. And it's in this voluntary world where our story today really takes off. Okay, so that brings us right to our case study for today, GreenLink. This is a platform with a pretty bold mission, right? They want to completely redefine the voluntary carbon market by, for the first time, making it truly democratic and open for all. And you can see that inclusivity is baked right into their model. It's set up so that small-scale farmers can turn their fields into what they call carbon banks, storing carbon in the soil and trees to earn extra cash. Companies get to buy credits they can actually trust. Governments get clear, transparent data. And this is the really cool part. Individuals like you and me can get involved through stuff like planting trees, turning our small eco-actions into a measurable piece of a much bigger solution. So the big question is, how do you possibly track all these tiny, scattered actions all over the place? Well, the answer is a really powerful mix of modern technology. GreenLink uses satellite imagery and AI to actually measure the carbon being captured. And then they use blockchain to create a transparent, unfakeable digital ledger for every single credit. This is how you build a system that's accurate, scalable, and most importantly, trustworthy. Let's just walk through how this whole thing actually works, step by step. First, a farmer's land gets mapped and officially verified. Simple enough? Then, satellites and photos with GPS tags are constantly watching, tracking the growth of trees and crops. Next, AI models crunch all that data to figure out exactly how much carbon is being pulled out of the air. But it's not all digital. They then use real-world field and soil samples to double-check the AI's math. And finally, a unique, tamper-proof credit is minted on a blockchain, creating this permanent, see-through record of real-world carbon removal. This entire high-tech process is built on a principle you absolutely have to know called MRV. That stands for measurement, reporting, and verification. And it's not just some buzzword. It's the scientific backbone that makes sure every single credit is real, that it's quantifiable, and that it's trustworthy. This is the whole defense against greenwashing. And it's the key to making anyone confident enough to buy these credits. Okay, so if this amazing tech exists, why does the voluntary carbon market have such a bad rap? I mean, despite all the promise, the world of carbon credits is absolutely littered with problems that have created, frankly, a huge crisis of credibility. And all its skepticism really boils down to 4 giant hurdles. You've got additionality, like would this carbon have been captured anyway, even without the project? Then there's permanence. Are those trees going to be cut down next year? Then there's leakage. Did protecting this forest just push the loggers to the forest next door? And the big one, double counting. Is the same credit being sold twice? These are the tough questions that have haunted this market for years. Now, on top of that massive trust problem, there's an equally big economic one. And it all starts with this number, 1.83 acres. That is the average size of a farm in India. So here's the problem that tiny number creates. When a farmer with a small plot like that grows something like cotton, even if they do everything right, they might only generate about 1 carbon credit per acre per year. The income from that is so small, it's just not worth the hassle to even get involved.
And that creates this huge barrier for millions of small farmers who we need in this fight.
So you've got this two-headed monster, right? A trust problem and an economic problem. How on earth does a platform like GreenLink even begin to solve that? Well, their whole strategy is built around two really smart ideas: using land way more effectively and the incredible power of just grouping everyone together.
And here is the first part of their solution. And honestly, it's a total game changer. Instead of just focusing on seasonal crops that don't store much carbon, GreenLink encourages much higher value uses of the land. Things like agroforestry, mixing trees in with your crops, that can store 5 to 12 times more carbon. Or planting dense bamboo, which can store over 15 times more. This just massively increases the amount of carbon you can capture, which means it massively increases the potential income for the farmer.
So it all comes together in this three-part strategy. First, they bundle up all those little credits from thousands of farms into one huge project that big corporate buyers are actually interested in. Second, they focus on those high-value land uses, especially on land that's been degraded or isn't even being used. And third, they build that crucial trust with a totally transparent profit-sharing model and by bringing in independent auditors to verify absolutely everything. So it's really important to zoom out for a second and see that what's happening here is bigger than just one company or one platform. What we're looking at is a potential blueprint for a much, much larger global shift in how we pay for climate action. Because the ultimate goal here, the real prize, is to move beyond these murky, fragmented markets we've had in the past and build something totally new, a transparent, trusted, and inclusive system that can finally funnel billions of dollars into real, on-the-ground climate projects at a scale that actually matters. And here's the big takeaway for you. The carbon economy is evolving, and it's evolving fast. What used to be a world for giant corporations and governments is starting to open up. And pretty soon, the small, positive changes that all of us make, planting a tree, choosing a sustainable product, could become a measurable and maybe even a valuable part of the global solution. The question really isn't if anymore, it's when.